Hi, it's Jason Troy Medium. Welcome to another episode of Ask Jason. I haven't done one of these in a long time. Um, so basically, I've been getting a lot of, questions on some of the questions. Basically, the questions are, you know, the bigger ones. The who am I? Where am I? What am I doing here? Life purpose. These are not just little questions. These are the ones that are like that we keep pushing to the side, where we're not really looking at because we're too busy, right? We're too busy doing our things where we're getting up, going to work, getting up, going to work, and that type of thing. And eventually, when we have a little bit of a pause, we start to go, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep going down that same cycle? Why do I keep staying in that relationship? Why do I keep going to that job that I hate? Why do I? Now, I don't want to burst your bubble, and I've talked about this before with my students and my clients and stuff, is that you got to really understand the space that you're in, and where you came from is basically the big question, is that, and that's the first one, is who are you? I'm not talking like this character that you're playing right here. I mean the real you, the bigger you, the one that came in and actually chose the incarnation. And I've talked about this in other episodes and so on. There's a lot of information on this, but basically it's the reincarnation cycle. So if you're in this dimension, if you're in this space, cycling or re-experiencing, and it feels like it's an alternate reality where you're actually, I've done this before, I keep doing this over and over again. The characters change, but the actual life lesson or the underlining, experience is very similar or the same. It's because you're not listening. So the higher self, God's source, they can't physically move you around on the board. They can keep showing you things, which is basically the mirror of your experience, which is the space that we're in, is basically a projection. So the higher self will use that projection almost like a movie to say, look, we're going to play so and so and so there, and if you don't listen, we're coming around again in 2 weeks. So you can push this to the side, just free will and choice, but you need to do some work here, and don't think that it's always about sitting there playing on, on video games and iPhones and, watching TV and just eating processed foods, and that's not what this place is about. This place is set up like this, and I can tell you, the place isn't broken. So the environment of 3D space, if you're looking at the news and the way everything is going, or how it shifts, and, we think that we got to go around fixing, it was actually designed this way. So we designed it. We came in from the higher space. We dropped into the lower energy field, and because we're in this lower density or this lower dimension, if you want to think of it that way, we've been stuck here for a very long time. So lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, we've been coming in and going out and coming in and going out, and every time we leave, there's a whole checklist of things basically on what we want to do the next lifetime. So if you didn't learn the experiences of love or anger or resentment, whatever the choices that you didn't make here in this dimension, just because you come out of the body, and this is where it gets into mediumship work, because a lot of people try and they ask me questions on, well, what's really happening to you when you're on the other side. So the experience of leaving the body, right? And I can tell you this, a lot of people, and there's a lot of evidence on this, on out-of-body experiences, a lot of us, when we sleep, we're actually doing OBEs, or out-of-body experiences, and then the body will actually rest, and then we come back into the body because we've been doing our work and so on. And sometimes you wake up in the morning, you're like completely exhausted, but you've had a full night's sleep. It's because you've been out there energetically doing things that you need to be doing, because in the physical body, you're too busy to begin with, because you get up, go to work, get up, go to work, kids, the whole, you're just basically shuffling yourself around on the game board, and then you're just, at the end of the day, you just drop, right? So, we've been doing this cycle over and over and over again. So when I'm dealing with my clients, when they're asking me questions about loved ones and so on, when they're on the other side is not like, when we start to look at, and I'm not going to, I don't want to breach anybody's comfort zone here with, religion and stuff, but for me, it's a concept. I don't really have a belief pattern. The space of heaven or the space of hell is more of a story or a metaphor, if you want to understand where the temple or the heavens is basically part of the body frequency, and then the lower part, which is the lower base, is where all the heat is, fight or flight or survival energy, right in the gut area. So that's the hell space. Everybody feels things in their gut, or if they're like feeling off or down or sick, a lot of things twist, and a lot of people have a lot of energy around their tummy space. So when we're coming out of the body mind being suit, we get into the other, the free form or the formless. Okay, so you're in an energetic form, but you're not in a physical form. So form and non-physical form. So being in that space, you will tune to the frequency based on whatever you were doing here, or based on all the other past lives. So it's almost like a checklist of all your past lives. So let's say you've been a murderer and a murderer, a murderer, a murderer, and you keep killing and killing and killing. And in this lifetime, you were supposed to help, 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 and you didn't. So you get to go back to that actual energy frequency in order for you to. Now, when you're on the other side, you'll either be a guide for people that you've actually, you know, if you've got some kids and grandchildren and so on here. Just because Grandpa comes out of the body doesn't mean he gets a jail out of free card. He still has to be Grandpa, so he'll still help and assist the family members here, and it's basically, you know, guiding and whispering and that type of thing in the ears and so on, and trying to ensure that there is still guidance being taken place to help and assist, because when he was here, he really didn't understand the whole game board itself, because it's heavily programmed, because of the program that's so heavy here. You know, that's why you're looking at TVs and cell phones and Wi-Fi and all that stuff that's bombarding the body-mind meat suit, is programming it to remain in that first chakra frequency, which is basically the fight or flight survival energy. And so this place runs, a lot of it runs on fear. So when you're getting into lack, or you're getting into, you know, you're scared about abundance, you're scared to move forward, you're scared to go to the next step, the body will always say no. It does not like change. So the more that you breach your comfort zone, the more that you get out of watching TV and just basic, you know, a lot of people like Netflix and just binging on it. Like I'm guilty of this too. I'll sit there and all of a sudden I'm watching a series and it's like 4 hours have gone by and I'm like, holy crap, I've been sitting in this one spot, just zoned right out. So, you know, basically, you just got to catch yourself in the act. So when you're looking at answering some of these questions, so just to go back to the question of who are you, you are an unlimited master frequency. Okay, so this unlimited energy, all right, this master being, this ancient soul, okay, is having an experience of what it's like to be in limitation. So this place is set up with limits. So to get to the next question is, when a lot of people will ask me, well, what is my life purpose? Well, your purpose is to follow your excitement, follow your bliss. Once you start to get lined up with that, the energy of limitation will stand right in front of you, because that's what this place is about. So once you find the line of where you actually get excited about something, there's going to be a block placed in front of you immediately. And the job that you have to do is go through that block. Now that energy block is very thin. So if you go through the block, your prize is on the other side. So that's why I suggest to people, I say, listen, you know what, your dream doesn't have an expiry date on it. So just basically, you know, you take a deep breath, you just relax, try again. Failure is on the way to success. So the more that you keep pushing, the more that you strive for what you're excited about. Because if you're not really excited about it, like on a scale of 1 to 10, if it's like a 2 or a 3, that's just something either somebody's been talking to you about, or do this, or, you know, you should be working at Walmart, or you should be working as a nurse. Well, if you're an artist, those two options on that scale are probably not very exciting for you, right? But they are survivor jobs, so you need to be realistic about it. So that survivor job will probably get you on the way to becoming that artist, because, you know, there's a lot of starving artists out there. So if you're going to need the income in order for you to fulfill your dreams. So you got to be realistic about it. A lightning bolt's not going to come out of the sky and make this take place, and there's no blackboard in the sky. So when a lot of people sit in front of me and say, well, what am I supposed to do, or what am I here to do? Well, you got to create. You're a creator. You're creating the options. So I'll give you an example. So a lady sits down in front of me, and I just keep getting all these images of past lives that she's had. So she's been the nanny, the nurse, it's a lot of caregiving stuff, working in hospitals. So anyway, so she's sitting there, and I think she was working at Tim Hortons at the time or something. But she was really stuck. She was basically trying to figure out what's the next step. She was still pretty young. She was like, you know, under 30s and so on. But she just didn't like what she was doing, and she knew there was something else, or there was something different. But even though that she worked at Tim Hortons, she noticed a lot of people were coming towards her and asking her questions, and basically a lot of it was caregiving. It was a lot of stuff where she was basically giving a kind word or helping an assist her. She noticed a lot of people were gravitating towards her, very similar to somebody that was either a psychologist or somebody that worked with people that are ill, and basically she was a healer. So she couldn't understand why she couldn't get into her life purpose or passion, but basically I said to her, I go, you should be a nurse, or you should be working in a hospital. And she goes, I've been thinking about that since I've been a little girl, but I really didn't understand how to get to that space and that type of thing. It just seems life keeps placing things in front of me, which are blocks, and I just keep basically settling, or I'm more complacent, and I just keep taking whatever what they're giving me. So what you have to do is you have to jump outside of the comfort zone, which is basically, you know, instead of taking the easy road, okay? So the hard road, sometimes you may have to take the stairs, you may have to do some work, right? A lot of people are, you know, they don't want to do the work, and I find a lot of people when they come to me, I'm always giving them homework, and they don't like it because they want to be told things, and they want to actually be given things so that they don't have to do the work. And this is what this place is about. This is a school. This is an experience space that you created for yourself, for your soul to grow, and you're not here to be happy. A lot of people think, you know, it's always about happy, 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 and then we're pushing away pain. The happy pill basically will show up, you know, you're with your kids, you know, you've got vacations and those types of spaces, but it's not always sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns. So when you start to realize that the space that you're in is a soul growth process, and if you look at all the esoteric teachings, a lot of it, you know, if you've ever heard of the term the Jacob's Ladder, or moving up the scale, and a lot of people talk about the chakra points and so on, clearing some of these chakra energy centers. Once you start to do that, the energy centers are basically energetic vortexes of where you're operating from. So a lot of times people sit in front of me when I'm doing energy work and so on, and I can see colors and feelings, I get tension, tightness in my body and so on. So in those spaces, that's where they're stuck, or they're holding, right? So a lot of times people need communication, help with communication, a lot of stuff will be stuck here, and I'll even feel it in my body, and I'll start coughing and so on, or that color is actually blue, and so what takes place is with people is that they stay stuck in certain areas, and 90% of us are stuck at the first chakra point, which is fight or flight or survival energy, which is basically what's running the planet. And that's why if you want to try and get out of something that you keep staying in the same cycle, you keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again, like Groundhog Day. If you want something different, you have to do something different. In order for change to take place, change has to happen from the inside out. It has nothing to do with somebody else, like myself giving you something to change you. I'm not here to fix you. You know, your parents aren't here to fix you, your loved ones, and so on. Those are outside expressions, so don't go looking for somebody else to make you happy. Don't go looking for somebody else to do the work for you. When you put in 10% of the effort, and I'll give you an example. I had a lady where she was running 2 jobs. She was in that corporate job world where, you know, I call it the paycheck prison. So the paycheck prison scenario, but she wanted to have the freedom. I said, you should be owning your own business, doing your own thing. And she was actually doing that, but she was putting only 10% of that energy within a month, and she was very unhappy because the 90% was in that hole because she was actually fulfilling somebody else's dream instead of fulfilling her own dream. And I said, look, just quit. And she goes, well, I can't because I am stuck. I have bills to pay, I have this to do. So she kept giving me excuses why she, and I said, like, if you take the jump, the universe works in a void. So nothing becomes something. So when you go back to nothingness, which means that almost like a reset, so you reset the clock, or you reset the cycle. Okay, so in order for you to break the cycle, you have to reset it. So if you're going to reset it, just do something different. Just come out of, it could be something very small, like just going outside, going for walks instead of sitting on the couch right after work. So when I told her to reset it, what she basically did was that you're taking one step forward, and then the higher self, God Source, says, okay, they're paying attention now, we're going to take 2 more steps, and we're going to push that, and you're going to be in this momentum trend, right? A lot of times you get downloads of things, you get thoughts and ideas. I had one lady where she kept talking about, I have this, it's almost like I got a buffet of things, I keep getting all these ideas to do certain things, I just don't know which one to pick. Well, that is the skill sets of all the lifetimes that you've had that you're culminating and bringing into this lifetime. So you can choose. But it doesn't mean that you have to be the doctor, the nurse, the lawyer, but you can choose some of that stuff because you've been those people before in other lifetimes. So just to recap here for you, so when you're looking at the question of who are you, okay, the who are you, the unlimited master frequency, is actually a multi-dimensional energy. Okay, so this, we're going to get into a little bit of advanced stuff here. So the multi-dimensional energy is having the experience here in a 3D space, but this 3D space is also locked and contained. So now this might, you know, whoever's watching this right now, if you're not really up on some of my teachings and some of the stuff I talk about, it may breach your comfort zone the way that I'm talking right now, so just sit back, just whatever resonates, take it, and whatever else, just keep it in your back pocket. But when I say to people, I go, look, you've come from a high frequency, you've dropped this. If you want to know where hell is, we're in it. So you're trying to raise your frequency back to, because you came in from that higher part, you've dropped into this lower energy, and in order for you to wake up, you have to really understand where you are in order for you to wake up and see, right? So a lot of us are like this, right? So you're getting into this scenarios, right? So it's a little square, right? Focused, zoned out. You see people walking around with these devices, and they're walking off piers, walking into cars, walking into poles. So we're not paying attention to the 90%. We're just basically robots. So when you know that the space is actually contained and locked and manipulated by certain forces and other energies and so on, then you start to know who is playing with you. Now, this also gets into other frequencies that are around us. You get into the positive and negative. You can start to go off the track and say, well, there's this gets into the ET frequencies, or the non-physical interdimensional energies, which I can tell you they're very real. When you're looking at even when somebody comes out of the body, they're seeing different types of beings. They're seeing different types of, depending on their frequency when it was here, they can see grandpa, Jesus, Buddha, whoever. Some people do see these ET frequencies that are around them and so on. Some people have actually had different experiences while they're sleeping, where they're feeling pressure on the chest, paralysis while they're sleeping, and then they could see 6 or 12 beings around the bed. That's an interdimensional, or basically an extraterrestrial frequency that is where you came from. So that's why I talk to people. I go, look, you're a multidimensional energy, and if you pray to angels, or if you pray to different frequencies, or you invoke these energies are you. They're aspects of you, or you've come from those energy lines. But at the end of the day, when you think, okay, let's give you an example. So for a lot of people will pray to an angel, and Archangel Michael within this dimension has a lot of press, right? Like a lot of people in the spiritual communities will focus and invoke the Archangel Michael frequency. So I say you got to be very careful with that, because this is duality. If you invoke that frequency here, you're going to get his opposite, because he has the positive aspect, but the negative aspect of Michael is basically Lucifer, or the Luciferian frequency. So you got to be very careful if you come in with those, because those two energies have to balance. Now, when I say to them, I go, okay, is an angel above you? And a lot of them, because we think, it's this higher energy, they'll say, yes, it's above you, and it isn't. It's actually below you. You command the angelic energy, and you command the demon or the entity frequency. You are the creator. You don't really know who you are until you start to invoke these energies, and they have to actually listen to you. So you're the commander-in-chief, if you want to think of it that way. So when you invoke both, if you're ignorant, the lower ones, if you have tears or rips within your auric field, or trauma from your past lives, or from your past, they can play with you. So they'll start to enter into the frequency, and then that's when you get into spirit attachments and so on. So I always caution people when they go down these roads with meditations and invoking different types of energies and so on, you got to be very careful, because these energies love to play with you, and it's basically a life lesson or a learning lesson. So when you're this multidimensional energy, you can interact with these frequencies, and the best form to do that is through meditation. So you can really understand the game board by understanding that this place actually runs on 12. So you got 12 hours on the clock, you got 12 months of the year. So the dimensional frequencies, you've got the 12, okay, so it's the 12 around 1, which is the 13th being, which is you. This gets into the Jesus story and so on. You have the 12 apostles, you get the 12 aspects. So when you start to interact with these energies, and if you're starting your awakening process already, you're probably asking these questions. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing here? Why do I keep doing the same pattern over and over and over again? I want to break this cycle, and then you get into depressional thoughts because you don't know how to do it, and you can basically feel and understand that there's something off, there's something wrong. It's because your higher self saying, look, you got a certain amount of time here, you're in a really good space within this awakening process, and right now is time to actually go from kindergarten into university, and let's start to really pick this up a little bit, and you got to start to approach this like a spiritual athlete and a spiritual warrior, because the soul wars is basically the war on consciousness. So the temple is the war in heaven. This space. So that's why everybody's doing this. This is all this, eat this, buy this, act like this. So a lot of this energy is docking here, and then when you start to wake up, then you're going to start to push away those thought patterns. Now, this place runs on thought. That's what you get into the law of attraction and so on. So the thought that the thought forms, okay. And then you get into different energies such as entities and spirits and so on that will actually start to dock frequencies, and that's when I talk about with the mediumship stuff, where people will say, well, how do I know my dad is there? And I'll just ask them a very simple question. I say, well, how many times do you think of your dad? And they say, daily, 24/7. I can't stop thinking about him because he is there. There's no way he can physically move you, but he'll keep throwing a thought pattern to you to let you know that he's standing right there. Okay, so it'll be your own thought. You're never going to hear a voice, hey, it's me, it's Dad. He's never going to do that. So the frequencies, we're docking frequency all the time. We're docking information, thought forms all the time. Even from a handshake or hug, I could be sitting in one room and I'll get a thought pattern from somebody else in another room. And this is actually happened. It was an experience with a client. And I give this as an example all the time. So it was a husband and wife couple. The wife comes in. She sits down. We do our session. And within the session, I kept getting thought forms, or I kept getting parts of the reading where I kept seeing a blonde girl. She was very thin, but I kept seeing her with a tattoo of Daddy on her arm. So I described the girl, and I said, do you have a daughter? Because I started to interpret it. It felt like a frequency of a daughter. She said no, and I said, okay, well, I just left it, and I kept doing the reading. So then afterwards, the reading was done. Her husband was actually sitting outside. He was reading magazines and stuff. So they go home, and then I get a text from her, and she says, you know, at that time when you said and you described that girl, my husband was actually looking at a magazine, and he came across a model who was blonde and thin and basically had a tattoo of Daddy on her arm. So in the session, my consciousness had deflected and pinged out onto his consciousness, and I pulled in that thought form. So when you're doing any type of practice, or you're trying to develop your psychic gifts or abilities and so on, you've got to be very careful with that as well, because there's different layers of getting intuitive information and basically picking up consciousness or conscious fields or basically thought form patterns. So everybody's picking up these thought form patterns. Sometimes we get overloaded with it. That's why you get into sensitive people that are empaths and so on, where they get into panic attacks or anxiety attacks, where they're like a lot of pressure here, because this is the high heart. So this is the disc, okay? So when you come in, if you ever work with a shaman, or if you work with somebody that's really understands metaphysics and stuff, a lot of times they don't look at you in the eyes. They look at you right here because they're decoding your disc. They're decoding your frequency. And so a lot of that information, very similar to a CD or a DVD, is sitting right there. So think of it almost like a recording. You're reading, okay? So that's why a lot of times I'll sit with people and say, you need to leave your hands open. Don't do this, because if you're doing this, you're shutting or closing this part of your body. So when you're more open, the disc is able to open up, or you'll be able to receive it. And that's why a lot of people put pendants, protection pendants here, right? So that a lot of things will sit in this space to protect. You can even do energetic protection as well, like when you're putting light and stuff. But so when you're looking at receiving information, okay, and trying to decode the frequency or the information that has been bombarded, which is basically, remember we're talking about the war in heaven, or the thought form, or the consciousness war. So you want to basically protect yourself. So a lot of things that you can use to protect yourself, or you can use different types of crystals, shungite, tourmaline, different types of you can do sea salt. I do a lot of videos on the energetic series. So sea salt bath, Himalayan salt, that will scrub your aura field, so you're not getting bombarded with a lot of these energies. And you can start to see clearly or feel clearly, so you're not getting that panic attack, so you can start to line up with your divine mission and plan, your purpose. Okay, so just to bring this all back around to that next question, what is my purpose? What am I doing here? Okay, what is it that I'm here to bring or to offer? Well, you came in with a whole skill set of stuff. Okay, so everybody is unique. Everybody has a unique, I guess, signature. Okay, a unique skill set check boxes, okay, of things that they've come in with. Okay, so I'll give you an example. I can only speak from my own experience. So back before I started to figure out what I want to do and that type of, I've been like this since a little kid, but I never thought I'd be doing this. I actually was pushing this, so I was kicking and screaming not to do this. But I went to school. I was going to be a police officer, and I'm not a police officer, but I tried to be a police officer. And a lot of things that I was gravitating towards were what was like even joining the army and a lot of stuff to do with war. I was watching a lot of war movies and those types of things. But for some reason, I even get flashbacks and actually dreams of being in wars and those types of things. And when I would do meditations, I would get a lot of visuals of being like a knight and a guy with a sword and these types of battles and that type of thing. And I've had a lot of people even tell me, even in readings and so on, that I was a warrior. I was this energy that actually destroyed a lot of villages, a lot of people, a lot of I guess history. I was in history a lot, Knights Templar and all that stuff. So that's what I was in my past life. So in my karmic wheel, for me to actually blow through or balance, it's interesting what I'm doing right now is all I do is help and assist others. It's all about uplifting the feminine frequency. So in my past life, I was probably a total maniac. So my point is, coming into this dimension, everybody has a skill set. If it keeps repeating, it doesn't mean that I had to be a police officer. It doesn't mean I had to join the army. But I do have this warrior type frequency of basically getting stuff done and making sure that you approach it in a certain fashion, not wishy-washy and that type of thing. But those skill sets did serve me in those other lifetimes, but in this lifetime, I don't need to go down that road. And very similar to some of the examples I gave you with the person that was a nurse and the nanny and so on, that's the caregiver or the nurture frequency. So what you have to do is basically maybe do a journal or start to do like a check, pros and cons of things that you like and things that you get that really, really, really get you excited. And you need to follow your excitement. You need to follow your bliss. The more that you get excited about something, that will take and bring you off the momentum. So when I'm talking you through this video right now, I'm not saying that you have to quit your job and then bang, create the void. You really don't want to, you want to be realistic about this, okay? So you really want to run two at the same time, and then eventually you start to do meditations, and the higher self will use the experience as a mirror to you in order for you to see the next step. And when you ask for the next step, it's called asking and it is given. All you have to say is, what do I need to see today? And then it'll actually present it to you very quickly, and it'll collapse. And then you'll see the next step, and basically you'll either start to quit or not want to be in that space, or you'll even get fired. And then you go, wow, that's actually my greatest gift. And then bang, you can start doing what you're here to do, or the divine mission and plan. So I do appreciate the opportunity, and I'll be shooting this off and putting this up on YouTube. And if you have any questions or shoot me an email, send me a text. Thanks for your time.